Hi, I'm Walt. Um, Andy asked me to step in today. He's off gallivanting around somewhere. I'm not sure where he is this week, but just asked if I would step in. And he had been planning on presenting something today on free connections in PowerApps, as well as some templates, things like that. I've kind of uh, spread out on that a little bit. I decided to go ahead and cover those topics very briefly, and at least, and then get into a little demo of some stuff I've been working with that might be of interest to you. So let's see, what I need to do here, I guess, is get into what I always like to start with. Start by going into my SharePoint environment. That way I make sure that I've logged into the right account, not a client account in this case. And so we'll start out here. By way of background, I should just give you a little bit of background about me. I'm an urban planner by profession. Started out with a master's in urban planning, but unlike the typical urban planner, I kind of went the systems analysis route, got into transportation planning, did that for quite a few years, and then that kind of evolved into geographic information systems, and then in recent years more straight to database stuff. I'm trained and certified in SQL Server database design and development. However, I usually prefer just working the front end and keeping data in SQL oftentimes, but I really like to concentrate on the front end. So I've done a lot of Access databases over the past years, and like everybody else, I've kind of gotten into trying to do everything online in the last couple of years, or last several years, and then even more recently, of course, with Access web apps going away, trying to find alternatives. My work is pretty much focused on business process apps, which usually are not real complicated. But I'm usually looking for ways of doing forms and workflow online on the one side, and then on the other side, picking up that data and using things like especially Power BI to be able to do data modeling and reporting and dashboards and that kind of thing. So I like PowerApps from the standpoint that it's looks like a good way of building forms, and especially my clients so far like the fact that it's mobile enabled out of the box, or right. It's so we can always assume that they can access things on their smartphones or their tablets just as easily as on their laptops. I've experimented in past years. I did a project a couple of years ago involving Nintex, and I've also worked a little bit with K2, and more recently with a product out of Dublin, Ireland called Flowforma. And those apps, do some things that will fit the bill, but they tend to be pretty expensive and sometimes not as good from my perspective as working directly in the Microsoft platforms. So I'm trying to stay focused on PowerApps at the moment, PowerApps and Flow. And anyway, to get right into this, so again, I usually try to start out in my SharePoint online environment, and then I'll jump to get to PowerApps that way. So I make sure I'm connected all around. And by the way, as I'm going through this, if you have any questions you want to stick in the chat box, or if you really want to jump in, you're welcome to unmute yourself and just jump on in and participate, ask a question or make a comment. But I think my presentation here will go by pretty quickly, and then we'll have some time to discuss some things. So anyway, this I'm sure is familiar to everybody. I in terms of connections, of course, when you get to this home screen, click on connections. These are all of my free to me connections. I think it probably automatically will show connections like Dropbox, and Dropbox looks like some of these are third party, based on third party services. Dropbox probably just because I have a Dropbox account and I'm logged on or something through my, and of course most of what I do is using SharePoint, but also it's kind of neat to be able to use OneDrive for Business to put Excel files in there, particularly be able to access those, use those as a data source, which is easily updated. So you can see these are pretty much things that I have because I have Office 365 E3 subscription. Now, if you go to New Connection, you can see all of the possible connections that you can make, including SQL Server, of course, and BB2 and things like that. Then Facebook, I suppose, MySQL. So anything that you have that you own, that you have a subscription, you can access and use as a data source. I think things that are marked premium are available free to you, again, if you have a business or an enterprise subscription of Office 365. Otherwise, you may have to pay for that. Let's see, what else did I want to show you here? But I think you understand how that works. So, got a lot of, typically the things that are free with Office 365 are your SharePoint environment and OneDrive. And in this case, I got my personal OneDrive as well, and your Outlook, and the Common Data Service is kind of a neat thing. I haven't worked with it a lot. I think I have one app that's made based on that. But let's see, we can look, and I think it'd be easier for me for us to look at those from the app side. So if we go to create an app, we can either start out with your data, which in this case I don't have Salesforce, but otherwise I can probably use these other data sources. And I usually do like to start with the phone layout because, again, most people these days do want to be able to use it as a mobile app, and you can always make a duplicate the landscape layout if you need to. Of course, these are. We'll come back to this because but for now, let's just click on phone layout with templates for templates. Again, you've probably seen a lot. This Alumni Association app, I was looking at it the other day, and it's pretty complicated. It's got like several browse forms, as well as several detail and edit forms, I believe. But you can see over here that some things some templates they default to a certain data source, in this case, Common Data Service. But of course, once you have it, once you're using the app, once you've started out with the template, you can customize it in a lot of different ways, and you can change the data source. Because case management's another one here that's based on the Common Data Service. let's see, just back out of here. Now, it's interesting. I've noticed that with OneDrive for Business, for example, the only kind of data that you can use is an Excel file. You'll notice here it says choose an Excel file. So I actually do in my OneDrive for Business. I just put this in here just for demonstration purposes. I didn't have anything in there, the Excel files, but so you can start out that way and choose a table from your Excel file and click connect. This case. Probably not much to show there. I don't know why none of the data comes in, but try the detail screen. Anyway, so this defaults to a typical, a simple template, of course, where you just got a browse screen. You start out with a browse screen where you can do searches or scroll, and then select, click on a right arrow and open up the details for a particular selection, and then go to the edit screen if you have editing rights to be able to edit. I'm going to bail out of this because I really want to concentrate on something else. Just a side comment here, of course, the Common Data Service, and again, maybe you've seen this, is based on entities, and so you can start out if your data, it's account information or certain case information or certain type of information, then you can use that as a starting template, and you can create new entities, or within those entities you can add, you can customize them, add additional fields and so forth. Not sure where the Common Data Service is stored, maybe in Azure, anyway, somewhere at Microsoft, so it's all online. I think I'll go right into the app that I created, and this is just using sample data. Of course, from here, I can just open it up, or you can see the URL at the top. You can just usually go directly to production environment just by going to web.powerapps.com, and if it recognizes your login, it'll take you right there. So again, this is an example. I'm using fake data here, but the actual app for the client was in Access Web Apps, and of course, being forced out of Access Web Apps, I would have loved to be able to keep the data in SQL Azure, but you have to pay extra for that these days, as far as I know. If you know otherwise, let me know, because I'd be thrilled to not have to pay for it. But I believe you do have some kind of Azure subscription. I think I can't get it. It doesn't look like I can get it with my E3 subscription. So this is the basic app. It's got some pictures associated with these people. It's just last name, first name, and title, or in this case, yeah, I guess it is a title. I can search, of course, on So bring up all my production assistants and search on anything that you've got set in the string, in the search string, in the way of text fields. And then, of course, click over to the detail environment. This was originally developed just for the president and CEO of a manufacturing company, managed through the HR department, but provided to the executives just to be able to easily bring up employees, mostly to know their status and this clock number. Not really sure what that means, but they know what it means, and their location and title, and in the actual app, I think I've got addresses and phone numbers and other information in there too. Then of course your edit mode, you can go in and your edit screen can be identical to the details, or it can be different, just depending on what type of data you want to make available for editing. I'm still trying to figure out if there's a way to I know that on the edit screen, most of the, I think it's based, the default anyway, is based entirely on text, editing text fields. Well, I mean, I guess IDs or clock numbers, but those actually, they may be text fields anyway. I haven't figured out how to edit a photo on here. I can place the photo there, but haven't figured out yet how to, if there's a way to actually upload a new photo or a missing photo through this. So far I've just been doing that through the data source in SharePoint. So, okay, having looked at that, let's go back and look at the design of it. I always prefer to edit in the web if I can, not on the desktop. So here we're opening the app, and of course starts out kind of small. You can zoom to increase the size, make it easier to work on. When I'm working in here, the first thing I'm concerned about is where the data is coming from. So click on by the way, this is probably, I probably started out with a contact management template for this and just modified it. But you start with the data and see which data fields are included. In this case, it's using the title space for last name, and then subtitle for first name, and this for title, and this for photo. Now, if you click on the just in this case, the browse gallery, which basically shows you the whole frame except for the top, you'll see the search, the sort and search criteria. So notice sometimes when I create a new app, it'll just use one, like in this case, the last name probably for the search. But I've learned that you can add as many column headings as you would like, as long as they're text fields, to this string here, the search string, and then of course pick one for the sort order. So you can edit that any way you like to add additional fields to the search. Detail screen. This is pretty much like what I showed you on the previous generic, the template. And then edit screen. In this case, I'm still again trying to experiment with a photo, which I Okay, well now I'd like to go back. I'll just go back. I wanted to show you, just the basic framework of the app itself in mobile screen mode. Now I'd like to jump back to the data source. So in this case, again, I would have used SQL Azure, would have continued to use SQL Azure if I didn't have to pay extra for it. But I kind of like, I actually, unless it's a complicated app and you have a lot of tables and things, it's kind of handy to actually work with SharePoint lists. In this case, I just, here's my list, and you can see it includes the pictures over there. The pictures are linked to, see if I can bring back my original screen. Pictures are all included in this picture library of images, so that when the client does need to update additional pictures for which are missing in the directory, or for new people, for example, they just push them up here into this directory, this library, and then from the list, click on here, you'll see it shows you the address. So it links to that picture library, of course. So that's where the data is stored. Just one other thing I want to show you, I guess. And that's an offline component. So in this case, I built a little utility in Access. One of those things you can actually still use Access for, yay. Anyway, just a simple little utility that links to the data. So this very easy to link, again, as long as you have a login, Office 365 login, to link to, in this case, a SharePoint list from your desktop. Very offline, but we can maintain this dynamic link here, so I can change information here and it'll automatically refresh in the SharePoint list online. Thereby, of course, updating everything in the Power App. So in this case, this is just a little simple utility again that connects to ERP data in the company, and then applies determines things that don't match, and will update or append records to my SharePoint list, which just by running these queries through this button. So that's the other thing I wanted to show, is just how you can, of course, do offline stuff by linking to SharePoint lists. Or I think if you're used to working with Access Web Apps, of course, you're used to doing this, connecting to, using the connection strings to link to SQL Azure. think that's probably all I have to say about this stuff. I just kind of wanted to show you some of the connection options and templates and how those can be used, and also a simple sample with three parts: the actual user interface, with the different screens for browsing and for viewing details and for editing, but then also what the data source would look like in SharePoint, and how to use a picture library along with that, and link and then link to your SharePoint list, all that, preserving the links, of course, to your web app, your Power App. So that's really all I wanted to cover. Of course, it's interesting. I mentioned the picture issue and editing that, and I imagine that there's a way of uploading and editing pictures in a Power App, but I haven't figured that out yet. And in this case, my client is wanting to be able to see what's missing easily and do this in kind of a batch mode, do it more quickly. So I think it'll probably be in the short term easier for them just to come in here and and sort on photos and see what's missing, and then update from here on this end of things. But the other thing that I'm still hoping to be able to do is to get with PowerApps is to be able to use forms and subforms like I was used to doing in Access Web Apps, but haven't gotten into that yet to try to figure that out. So if you have any experience with that or any ideas you want to share, that'd be welcome. I'm just going to go back to my if I can figure out how to get there. I'm just going to go back to this now, and if anybody wants to jump in with questions or comments, feel free. Okay, well, thanks very much for joining us today. Short and sweet. So unless anybody has something they want to add, you can just say goodbye and have a good day.